So what we're going to be talking about today is our very last section, which is on workers' comp, section 4. And I'm going to use our little hovercraft guy, or whatever that's called, Hoverflex, in connection with this to lecture on this section of the class. Oop, that's not what I want, is it? I want section 4. Huh. So I've got section 4 saved as section 5. Sorry, I'm going to have to go into the So workers' comp is a mandatory insurance that all employers have to pay. We tend to think of it in the same vein as payroll taxes, but it's not a tax, it's an insurance premium. So that's what kind of makes it different. But it's mandatory and only an employer-paid item. So in that way, it's like a FUTA or a SUTA or the employer's share of OSDI or HI, right? So it's employer-paid only. This first little screen shows you that there's actually 3 distinct areas to the whole workers' comp system. The employer pays into the state fund, and then the state fund, quote unquote, takes care of the injured worker. So you can see under the state fund, there's 5 areas or departments, so to speak, that work with which state fund is administered. There's safety and loss control. And safety and loss control is actually folks that go out and help the employer tighten up their workspace, make it a safer workspace. Okay? The ultimate goal is the safety of workers. So they do what they can using sort of OSHA guidelines to make, tighten up the workspace. Claims administration is just what it says. That's where people that are actually making their claims on workers' comp get their help, right? And they get their case dealt with. This third section, fraud detection, is sort of interesting. A lot of people don't know this is even out there. But fraud detection is a group that just goes around and does just what it says, make sure that workers are not defrauding the system. So if they suspect that you are filing claims for something that's not viable, they might come tell you speed right after you said you blew up your knee at work. Or they might, be interviewing your neighbors or your colleagues to find out if what you have said is really actually what's going on. And I mean, if you're criminally liable if you're making fraudulent claims on workers' comp. The early reporting system is based on, is a group of folks that are working to help educate employees around the state to report any sort of workplace injuries earlier rather than later. And this is a true story. When I was the CFO of a pharmaceutical company years ago back in Colorado, and a gal came to me, one of our chemists, or microbiologist, doesn't matter, and she had broken a beaker and she had a little sliver of glass in her fingertip. And she was like, I mean, it didn't look like anything, it looked like this one, a sliver of glass. And I'm like, oh no, we need to report that as a workers' comp incident. Well, sure enough, there was a toxin. There was toxins in the beaker, and she ended up getting staph infection. If you know anything about staph in the blood, and it gets into your organs, you can have systemic failure. So it's like that ended up being a little sliver of glass in her finger. So the point is, early reporting is really, really a crucial part of the successful workers' comp system. And then lastly, the managed care network, which is a group of doctors and physician's assistants and physical therapists and all that works together to manage a caseload with the worker back working. And for an injured worker, the three segments that work with them is to provide disability benefits if you can't return to the job or you're not able currently to be working at the job that you're normally at. Medical help, right, again, through that managed network, and vocational rehabilitation, which is you're never going to return to your job as a CNA because you can't lift, right? Your back is permanently precluded you from doing that. So let's get you in school and get you retrained for something your back can handle, right? So that's what things out. And we have, given the point in time, I bet you 6, 7, 8% of our student bodies here for yeah, great opportunity to get retrained. And the goal of all this, obviously, is early return to some sort of work. I mean, hopefully it will be the work you were at, but it might not. Your body's precluding you from doing that. So that's just a quick overview of what workers' comp looks like. It is mandatory no-fault insurance. And the critical piece here is this idea of no fault. In other words, if you subscribe, which we all have to because it's mandatory, to a workers' comp system, you're not trying to get a civil suit started to ascertain fault for the injury because you've got recompense through the system, right? So what does the employee get? The employee gets wage loss compensation, medical care, and funds towards rehabilitation, vocational rehabilitation, or if you've lost, fingers or God forbid limbs, or you die, there's benefits through workers' comp for your beneficiaries. Okay, so that's what the employee gets. What does the employer get? Protection, and it's called exclusive remedy, which means that in the case of gross malfeasance, I can sue my employer, but in a majority of the cases, they're protected by something called exclusive remedy, which means the way that I get my funds as an employee, an injured employee, is through the system. I'm not going to sue you. I'm going to go through workers' comp to get my exclusive remedy. So the employer gets a level of protection from litigation. And this just really reiterates that again, that what does the employer give? They give money. They give insurance money. What do they get? Freedom from lawsuits. What does the employer give or employee give? They give up the ability to sue. And what do they get? I didn't write this. Anybody that's been through workers' comp will laugh at this terminology, but speedy access to medical treatment and monetary supplemental benefits. Okay. I didn't write this. So I mean, like I said, this was written by State Fund. This isn't Lisa's read on how it works. But that's this whole section is just me compiling documents from these agencies to share with you. I had a gal, it was really sad. It was probably, God, I've been in the classroom 24 years. This was probably a good 18, 19 years ago. I had just started teaching here. And they lived down in the valley, and her husband was like a logger, a millwright, or did something in the logging industry, and he was injured. And it took so long to solve their case or to culminate their case and get benefits that they lost their house in the interim. The bank's not waiting for it to get resolved. So, I mean, that was just heartbreaking. And they had like something like 6 years left to pay on it, so they had a shit ton of equity in it. And I mean, same thing as you're talking about. It took a couple of years to get their case settled. What do you say? So they didn't have a safety net. I saw her years later, and they finally got the case settled, and they got payment, but the house was gone. She was so sweet. Linda, I can't remember her last name, but I can remember her like she's standing in front of me. Okay, who's covered? Everybody's covered. Full-time, part-time, seasonal, occasional, There's no age limit. People from other countries that are qualified to work here. And the employer pays for it. In no way, shape, or form should an employee pay for any portion of workers' comp. We saw with SUDA that in Montana, only employers pay, right? But in some states, employees pay a little bit in too, but that can never happen with workers' comp. But, pardon me, an employee cannot sign his or her rights away. So I'm a day laborer and I go out on a construction site and a beam falls on my foot and breaks my foot. And the foreman comes over and is like, oh my gosh, pulls out his wallet, pulls out 15 crisp $100 bills and says, this should take care of your medical bills. But then you need to sign this that says you're not going to take this through workers' comp. Why would the foreman do that? Yeah, because that claim could possibly really raise their workers' comp suits, right? Or their workers' comp rates, right? Less than $1,500 worth, or more than $1,500 worth. Don't do it. I mean, you could do it, but then you still want to file for workers' comp. No, that's bad form. You would say, no, thank you. I know that I can't sign my rights away. 3 types of coverage. The employer can self-insure. They can privately carry insurance. In other words, they just go to their regular old guy or gal that provides them with their liability and their auto and their whatever health. Or they can go to State Fund. State Fund is in Helena, and that's what it's called, the State Fund. And that's where everybody can get workers' comp if you can't access number 1 or number 2. Benefits are statutory, therefore identical. What that means is that no matter where I get my insurance for workers' comp, the benefits have to look exactly the same. It's not like you get a better plan here, less coverage there. It's all absolutely identical because statutory means it's set in state law. So it can't look different. But the cost can vary, right? One underwriter might underwrite your workers' comp policy and charge you something different than State Fund or another operator. So the cost can vary, but the coverage is the same. The State Fund is a residual market. Residual market means that if they can't get their insurance anywhere else, State Fund has to cover them. So even if you're really unsafe and you have a history of a ton of claims, you still have to be able to get, regular underwriters are not going to cover you, right? Because you're unsafe. There's too much risk. But when you go to State Fund, they have to cover you, okay? But your premiums are going to be high, right? So the only time that you can be booted is here if you're in default of your premium. Obviously, I had a log liner years ago, and they were just, I just can hardly believe it. They really just didn't seem to have any concern whatsoever about employee safety. And basic stuff, like log liners are out there in the woods without steel-toed boots, without, hard hats. It was just chronically putting the employees in unsafe positions. Subsequently, they had a lot of claims. Their workers' comp premiums were 50 cents on every dollar. So for every dollar they paid their guys, they paid 50 cents in workers' comp.
Are they still in business?
I can't speak to that. They actually live out in my neck of the woods in Target Range. That was an interesting set of affairs.
What if people have a different, they change their business name, their entity, they try to disguise their claim? Is that the way around?
It is. It's called dumping your rate, which people do for tax purposes, for workers' comp purposes, where I'm not gonna be XYZ log liner anymore. I'm gonna open a new LLC with a completely different name, but the same employees and the same clients and the same business operation. No, it's not illegal. No, it's totally illegal. It's called dumping your workers' comp and dumping your SUDA rate. Dumping your tax burden. Yeah, no, that's not legal at all. that's not to say that companies like, like Apple they're incorporated in Ireland. There's no income taxes.
So like,
So companies do it. It depends upon how high price of insurance.
I thought your federal, that number, when you state with that can't change their, maybe the federal or the.
FEIN. No, that does change.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, it's how clever are your attorneys. Okay, plan one, self-insurance. University of Montana is self-insured. That means we don't pay premiums to State Fund or to a private carrier. We put money every month into an account that's been actuarially calculated for our risk and our wage fees. What does that mean, actuarially calculated? That's kind of a big word. What's an actuary? Huh?
Based on month to.
Now, this is a person. This is a noun.
Guy who sits in an office and does number.
That is exactly it. It is a guy or a gal who sits in an office and does number crunching. They have PhDs in statistics. And every insurance company in the world has a team of actuaries. Actuaries make accountants look like they can't add. Okay? They're crazy number people. And they would take every single one of us in here and assess, if we were all trying to get life insurance, everything about us. From our blood pressure, to our age, to our gender, to our race, to our smoking, to our exercise, to our every single thing, and they would plug all those numbers in, and they would come out with a risk assessment on what we should each individually be paid for life insurance. That's what actuaries also do for workers' comp, for State Fund. They've got a team of actuaries that come in and calculate. Well, at the University of Montana, we have, I'm totally making this number up, but probably not too far off, 4,000 employees. 700 of those are faculty members. They're pretty low on the risk pool. Right? What are we going to do? Trip over a chair? Right? So we're not very high risk. But we also have people that maintain the boilers. It's very high risk. Right? Very dangerous. So, and everywhere in between. Right? So they come in and they crunch all the numbers actuarially, and they say to us, we need to put away X per month. Right? And then if somebody claims, that we just pay out of that pool. If they don't claim, we get to accrue money, and then in the future, the amount we have to pay every month goes down. Right? There's not very many self-insured people or self-insured companies in Montana. You've got at least 50 employees being business for your Social Security deposit. So I think like in Missoula, there's maybe, actually making this up, but between 5 and 10 organizations that are self-insured. It's really only kind of like the hospital self-insured, we self-insure. I don't know if the county does. The county probably does. They do? Yeah. So anybody that's got, that's a really good sized organization and can post a $250,000 security deposit, et cetera, probably self-insured. Private carriers, like I said, I just go to my regular insurance underwriter and say, can you write me a workers' comp policy, come back and give me a quote. And they're going to want to know a bunch of things. How many employees do you have and what do they do and how much do they make and blah, blah, blah. Do you have a safety committee at your company? How often do they meet? Can I see the minutes for the last 2 years? Things like that. They're profit-oriented, right? Whereas State Fund is not profit-oriented. They're profit-oriented and they can deny coverage. Just had this conversation with a couple people in my tax class a couple weeks ago. Whenever you introduce profit to a business paradigm, the chances are the costs are going to go up over what a nonprofit would charge, right? People bitch and moan about Missoula bought their water. We no longer make a return to shareholders. It's a nonprofit delivering the water. Before, there were shareholders that expected a dividend. By nature, your costs are going to be higher. And the maintenance was to the point where we had something like 48% leakage rate. And like people just don't process that. They're, ooh.
So what's the argument?
Well, the argument is when you have a for-profit company, your price of your product has to incorporate return to shareholders. Yeah, so there's no return to shareholders, right? It's a nonprofit, the government owns it. Right? Now, that's not to say costs aren't going to go up because our infrastructure was in such bad shape, right? People hadn't been putting money into maintaining it. At any rate, same thing here. So you might be really shocked to find, oh my gosh, my normal underwriter comes back and is charging me really pretty high prices for my insurance while they're a profit company. Okay. So those are the three, two. And then the third, of course, is you go to state comp. All they do, they're completely only in business to sell workers' comp. They are nonprofit oriented. They are a Montana state government entity. They cannot deny coverage. If they do deny coverage, it's because they're paying the premiums. I mean, they wouldn't deny coverage, but they could pull your coverage if you're not paying premiums timely. That was the other thing this old log liner would do is he wouldn't take care of his people, then he'd get these really high rates, and then he'd want me to go grieve it in Helena. I'll go up to Helena and tell them I'm not paying that. What the hell am I telling them you're not paying them? Why don't you put a hard hat on your guys? It's crazy. Okay, uninsured employers fund. This is kind of like the fraud division in that it's a little covert. But their task is to go around and find companies that have not procured workers' comp. So I'm a startup, I'm grooming pets, I hire a couple of you to come help me groom dogs, and do you groom cats? Yes. You do? You groom cats? Okay. Not a cat person. So grooming dogs and cats, I saw the sign on next to the food store, they said that they've got a doggy day spa. Yeah, only in America.
And then that spot.
First world problem.
Oh my God.
Like massages and all sorts of like crazy.
Wow, we got babies starving around the world, but we got doggy day spots here in America.
And like pet psychics.
No.
Because,
Wow.
that's what I need.
Over the top. So the workers' comp guy that's assigned to Missoula or gal drives around and sees a new sign up for, doggy day spa. And what's she going to do? She's going to go on her little laptop and say, hey, have they applied for workers' comp? Well, no, you haven't. So she's going to get a hold of me, work with employer to get me into compliance. She's going to actually physically drive around and look at new storefronts. She's going to look at in the paper every Sunday for new business license applications. And then if you're not in compliance, they'll give you a chance to get compliance. You need to file an application and put a deposit on it. If I don't do that, she is going to come issue a cease and desist order, and they'll actually put yellow tape and lockbox my building or my space. Okay? Because people aren't allowed to work in Montana. You're not covered by workers' comp. I can't employ people. And if I'm not planning on getting in compliance, she's going to come lockbox my organization. If I break the lockbox and go in and keep doing doggy day spa, they can actually prosecute me. Okay, this is old, but these are basically still accurate questions. When do wage loss benefits begin? Do you get it right away? Oop, I got hurt at 3 o'clock. Do I start getting paid at 3:01 from workers' comp? No, 48 hours, 6 days, 6 work days. So there's that stopgap time. And for a hell of a lot of people that are living paycheck to paycheck, that's a lot to be not get paid for 6 days. Like my rent still due. Does an employer have to hire an injured worker back? They've got to be given preference for 2 years from their date of injury. So I take time to heal, and then I come back, and I'm going to be the facilities manager for the Grizzly Stadium. I was looking at it in my eyes. So yeah, they've got to give me preferences in 2 years. How long do I have to tell my employer? 30 days from date of injury, and that's back to why it's so incredibly critical to do early reporting. Gosh, I work for FedEx, and my practice is really good, or the ergonomics, but I don't bend my knees and I don't my back tweak when I move that package. I mean, especially with soft tissue stuff, you do not want to be like kind of hobbling around with a back problem, because then guess what? 2 weeks later, you go snowmobiling, and then you come back and that next month your back really hurts. Now you're gonna have a hard time showing them the workers' comp injury, right? So I'm not counseling you to over-report, but I am counseling you to, pay attention to your body in comparison to your workplace, and make sure that, you tie in things that hurt, even if it's not necessarily evident. Can your employer get a hold of your medical records? Absolutely not. HIPAA. Okay, just go ahead and look through these questions. There's a fraud and abuse hotline. If you think somebody's defrauding workers' comp, you call this. If you're an employer, I'm sure any of you that have ever had a job have seen these things posted. They've got to post this with the policy number and everything on it, so that employers or employees know that they're covered and where they can access benefits and claims. And then every workplace should have somebody designated as the point person. So if I got hurt on the job, I know that I would go down to the second floor in the dean's office to Susan Graham. She's our first reporting person, coordinator, or whatever you want to call it. And I would say to her, I tripped over a chair and I think I blew on my knee. Slightly embarrassing, but it could happen, right? So she would then have me fill out a form. It's called the first reporting form. And in the old days, it was a hard copy. Now, obviously, it's digital. And they would get in touch with me and tell me what my next steps were. Workers' comp would, state fund would. They're going to give me a claim number. And then, again, this is their language number 4. They will promptly manage your claim and mail you a completed form. And this is all digital now. Remember, the objective is to report the claim quickly. Okay, so let's back up for just a second and talk about, it's the same thing that we do with all of our payroll taxes. First, you got to apply for some sort of number. In this case, it's not a number for taxes, it's actually for the policy. I'm applying to be covered by a workers' comp policy. Secondly, I need to pay, right? And then third, I need to do some sort of report to reconcile. So it's the same stuff that we've gone through over and over and over with our 941, our 940, our SUDA, our FUDA, right? Same. Here's how it works. And give me a second, I need to get this little, I haven't used this for a while. Hover cam, that's what it is. Let's see if we can get this little guy fired up. And I haven't done this for a while. No. So here's how it works. How does that work? What was it that I do? Oh, there we go. Okay. So with workers' comp, there we go. It starts by, normally with most taxes, we go over the period and then pay at the end, right? With workers' comp, you apply and you estimate into the future. And you make a deposit based on that estimation. And then at the end, you reconcile with a report. So what the heck do I mean? Let's do an example. Let's say in this example, I'm planning on opening my business on 1/1/18, right? And I'm sitting here in the middle of December, and I know that I've got to get my FEIN and my SEIN and da-da-da-da-da. And just for the sake of going with the example that we were just using, I'm going to open a doggy day spa, right? So I'm going to hire a salesperson. I'm going to hire a manager, and I'm going to hire 2 groomers. And pet therapists. Totally making this up. I don't really know what happens in a doggy day spa. My dog just gets combed out and bathed at home. And I'm going to have to estimate for state fund what I think I'm going to pay them. And my salesperson, I'm going to have go around to companies and sell this as a benefit they can provide their employees. And that sounds a little wacky in Missoula, that probably wouldn't go over, but I can tell you in places like San Francisco, those are the kinds of benefits. I mean, my son has pet benefits in his employee benefit package at Tesla. Pet benefits. Like the first Friday of every month is bring your pet to work day. And they've got pet insurance. And I mean, it's that's just kind of how benefits roll in Silicon Valley. So I'm going to pay somebody to sell to corporations, and I'm going to give them commission based on their sales. So I look at my business plan. I think I'm going to do 200 grand. I'm going to give them 10% of that plus a base of 20. So let's say I'm going to pay my sales person $40,000. I think this is all estimating. I'm going into the future, right? And I think I'm going to give my manager $50,000. That's probably me. And I'm going to pay my groomers and my pet therapist $30 each. Okay. Now, on a ranking of 1, 2, and 3, who's the most risky? Who's the second most risky? And who's the least risky? Groomers are clearly riskiest. Anybody working with the animals are going to be the highest at risk. Who's probably number 2? Why? Because they drive. They drive with their job. Anybody that's out in the car as part of their job is by nature higher risk. And number 3 is me. I'm just sitting in the office. Okay, but 1, 2, and 3. So I send these estimates to workers' comp, and they come back, and what they do, or to state fund, excuse me. So I say I'm going to have $150,000 of payroll next year, and I think this is what the breakdown's going to be. And they're going to go on their actuarial tables, and they're going to know exactly how risky somebody that works with dogs is, and somebody that drives around is. And they're going to come back, and they're going to give me, they're called rate classes. I'll post this, Donna.
Do you have homework?
If you want to do the extra credit, that's due by Monday, and then the audit test is Monday, and then the number 4 on this is due next Wednesday. Yeah, take care. They're going to give me a rate class and a rate. And the rate classes are based upon how risky you are. So we decided the groomers are the riskiest, and sales are the next risky, and the manager's not risky at all. This is, so they're going to send this back to me and give me these numbers, okay? What I do with those numbers are really percentages. So calculate how much of a deposit they want. These numbers, these rate class numbers, are really percentages. So using these, I'm going to have to give them a deposit. So calculate the deposit. give them $7,641 upfront. Okay, that's not nothing. I'm just opening a business. So when you're doing business planning, you've got to be aware that this is a big piece of what you got to do. Then I go down the road, and the next year, my business opens and it operates, right? And once I get a year out, on 12/31/18, I'm going to get something called the payroll report reconciliation. And what do you reckon that's going to ask for? They're going to want to know what actually happened. Yeah. So the deposit was all based on an estimate and an application, and I gave them the money, and then my business operated for 12 months, and now I'm out here, and they're saying, now tell me what actually happened. And what are the odds that this is exactly what actually happened? Nothing. My business sucked. My salesperson was horrible. I let her go after a month. She only earned $2,000. I took over those tasks. There was no money to pay myself, so I was zero. And I only had one groomer, and he was really good, so I gave him $35,000. So at the end of the year, I was way overpaid, right? So they're going to owe me some money, and then guess what I've got to do? Estimate for the next year, right? And then get even. So I'm going to send them more, they're going to send me more. And this cycle goes on and on and on. So the difference between workers' comp and everything else we've done is that this is paid up front based on an estimate. You get even at the end of the year, and then you predict the next year, and that cycle just rolls over and over. Okay? So, where was my... Is this not... Oh, fuck. I never hit the... Did I never hit the button?
Nope.
Well, that's not funny. Oh, no, I did. Okay. Oh, sorry. Now I've got that on tape. Great. Awesome.
That's why it's funny.
Yeah. Well, because two people specifically said, could you please tape this? Okay, all good. So that was all based back on going back to this. It will take the last couple of minutes to look at the assignment. Is you send your application, they send you a bill, you've got to pay the deposit, and then they send you something called a binder. And that's not actually up here, but you're going to get something called a binder, which means you're bound by insurance. You should get one of those with your cars too. Okay, so the assignment is based on doing two things. One is estimating and doing the application, and then the second is on doing the payroll report and reconciliation at the end. Here's your application. Don't forget to fill in the kind of company they are, and I'm going to show you the assignment in a second. Don't forget to fill in the description of the employee duties. This is not the names of the employees. This is the big groups like dog groomers, managers, salespeople. You don't fill in anything over here. This is what they fill in where they give you the rate class code. Okay? You just fill in the description of the duties, full-time or part-time, and estimated annual payroll. Okay? Then don't forget, if you have an IC exemption, are you covering yourself? No. So when we look at the case, let's make sure that we know whether the manager's covered by insurance or not. And they've got to fill in here, list the names of the owners, the partners, the LLCs, corporate officers, etc. And all the way over, are they in that fifth column, are they included or excluded? Right? Am I in or out of workers' comp? I can only do that on myself, right? I can't obviously do that on any of you. I can only elect that on myself, and I can only do that if I've done an IC exemption. And then honestly, I mean, read through these, but we're not going to have any of these. And then sign it. Then at the end of the year, they're going to send me this, And all I've got to do here, honestly, this is the only area I fill in. How much did my drivers actually earn? How much did my salespeople actually earn? How many of them were there full-time and part-time? And what was the total gross earnings? So the assignment itself is the last one. And assignment 4 tells you, using the data provided on Will Know Company, which was the data we used for number 2 that you just turned in, along with the following to complete a workers' comp insurance application. So I'm asking you to use this data and fill in with any of the other data you need from number 2, assignment number 2. And you're estimating a year into the future, and I'm telling you, use the salary data provided in assignment number 2. So I think that I gave you payroll data for 1 payroll in number 2, right? So just multiply that by 26, and that's your estimate. I mean, that's kind of fair guess, but I mean, I've got to just use some numbers. So that's what I want you to use for your estimate, for your application. Okay? So you're going to do the application, and then assume the Will Know Company's application is accepted, and they're issued policy 03, etc., by state comp insurance fund, and after 1 year of operations, they've got to complete a payroll report to report their actual payroll. And honestly, all you're doing here, here's the numbers. Here's the corporate officer, Moran, a couple salespeople, a bunch of drivers. And I tell you that up in the facts, who's what. And you need to figure out if he's covered or not. So this is a continuation of assignment number 2. So you're handing in 2 things, the application and the payroll report. That's assignment number 4, and that's really the last thing you're doing for me. Yeah, I mean, I'll take them on Monday if you want to hand them in on Monday with number 3, that's fine, but they're really not technically due until Wednesday.
So for number 3, do we only respond to one?
One letter, yeah.
You can pick which one?
You can pick which one.
Okay, so we don't have to go all.
Oh, gosh, no.
Okay.
Are you kidding me? We gotta be reading all that? No way. Yeah, so for number 3, don't forget, I mean, this is not a memo now, this is a letter. Inside address, date, header. You can go look in Word on the templates if you're not sure what a formal letter looks like, but it does have a salutation and a signature line, whereas memos don't. Okay, home stretch.
Okay, yes. Just what you guys saw in the paper, what we do is